Hey everybody, so my name's Humphrey Dong and this is my webinar for our class. So the book that I am doing the webinar on is Digital Humanities, Teaching History in the Digital Age. So the author is T. Mills Kelly. He's a professor at George Mason University and he teaches European history, digital humanities, public digital history, and modern East Central Europe. Not really too sure what that is, but he teaches it. So in the introduction, he talks about how technology is becoming, like I said, a much more integral part of how teachers are educating their students. And this is actually a quote from his book. Moreover, I'm convinced that the future of history teaching depends on our ability and willingness to accommodate ourselves to the rapidly accelerating technology-driven cycle of change that is transforming the teaching, learning, research and production of historical knowledge. So he feels that instead of sticking with the status quo, as most historians are still trying to do with text-based or print-based sources, we need to be more modern and look at archives in the digital world and be more in touch with the digital age. Kelly also believes that there literally hasn't been any significant innovations in the methods of teaching history until the late 1990s, when internet finally became a thing and something that could be used in the classroom. So Kelly isn't arguing that students should be able to roam free across the internet, finding whatever sources or information that they please. They should, on the contrary, he feels that structuring learning opportunities with the integration of technology is definitely the right way that teachers should be guiding their students, helping them find sources, guiding them on how to evaluate sources and how to find sources. He feels that that is the most important part of how teachers should utilize technology. So Kelly divides his book into 5 different sections. So the first section is thinking, how students learn about the past. How students learn about the past or what they think of the past has definitely been a question that is on the minds of historians and teachers whenever they go into the classroom. And Kelly actually has a really great quote here from Burke Hinsdale from 1897, yes. A memory that lays hold of subject matter should be stimulated rather than a mere verbal memory. The lecture is not the proper vehicle for conveying elementary knowledge of history. So, what Hinsdale is essentially saying is that lectures are not the solution for getting students to actually retain the information. Kelly himself believes that before taking a quote unquote take grand survey of a historical subject, so specifically like a Cold War class, a Vietnam class, students need to get the basic skills of reading historical evidence. So they need to be able to read sources and be able to analyze sources before they actually take a broader type of historical subject, which is contrary to what is being done now in public schools, which is you get a broader subject as opposed to a more narrow subject that teaches you how to read and analyze sources before they throw you into the bigger pond or pool per se of a broader subject. Another thing that Kelly discusses is how students think that they already know about the past and what the people of the past already thought about or how they thought. An example that Kelly gives in his book is about the suffrage movement for women. He says that a lot of students believed, of course, why shouldn't women or why wouldn't women believe that they should get the right to vote? Kelly gives the example of women that were against the suffrage movement, anti-suffragettes. This definitely shocked his students, and it also showed them that they are unable to recognize the views or unable to predict the views of people of the past, not only because they weren't there, but also because views in the past were just simply different than what they are nowadays. So the next section that Kelly discusses is finding, search engine dependent learning. So students always have the access to Google at their fingertips nowadays, whether it's on their computer or whether it's on their phone. So the first lesson is Google makes college easy, which is not necessarily true as Kelly discusses in his book, because just because you have Google doesn't necessarily mean you know what to search for. An example he gives is during one of his lectures, he's noticed that one of his students actually pulled out essentially a binder full of printed out sheets of information, and it wasn't really that helpful for the student just because they did not really know what to be looking for and what was relevant for the lecture. The second one is something that students usually and commonly mistake. If it's not digital, it doesn't exist. The sorry. The example that Kelly gives is that one of his students actually came in saying that he was unable to find this specific article in the JSTOR archive, and Kelly simply directed him to the college's library, and they actually have the print source available for the student. So it's a misconception for students to think that if it's not digital, it doesn't exist. Not everything is archived online. A third lesson that I thought was pretty amusing was that Kelly says that if it looks reasonable, it's probably fine. That's another misconception that students and teachers both have. The example that Kelly gives is that, excuse me, is that he actually created a website with his students, and it actually had misinformation about historical events, etc. And it actually fooled some history professors, because they not only were these subjects not in their field, the website itself and the information provided looked reasonable enough so that it must be true. And so Kelly definitely warns about that. In lesson 4, all content online is fair game. Kelly discusses this by saying how students are able to access Wikipedia constantly or just Google anything on the internet. It's important for students to know that even though all content online is fair game, it is still important for them to check their sources. And the third part of Kelly's book, Analyzing, Making Sense of a Million Sources, is kind of self-explanatory. As you know, as future teachers, everybody's going to be able to have access to the internet sometime in the future, and the internet contains millions of sources, and it's essential for teachers to help students narrow down sources and help guide them on research and help guide them for future endeavors. For example, prepare them for college or for other projects or activities and other courses. So since technology has become a major part, Kelly talks about this part of education. Kelly discusses this in his fourth section, presenting, capturing, creating, and writing history. So as the PowerPoint says, although digital sources and technology have taken over the educational field, it's still important for students to understand how to utilize print and physical sources, and including primary documents and secondary documents. And also, Kelly talks about the 3-slide PowerPoint in this section. So the story that Kelly gives is that he is supposed to make a pitch to a telecommunications firm pitching history apps for mobile phones, and the task was to create a 3-slide PowerPoint to emphasize all the parts of his product. And so what Kelly is trying to say is that it's more important that the PowerPoint be, I guess, ergonomic for the students, because everybody can create a PowerPoint, but making the presentation easy to read and easy to understand is the key for helping students retain knowledge and creating an effective PowerPoint. So the last section in Kelly's book is making DIY history, so digital history. And in this section, he discusses the importance for teachers to remember that students live outside of the school too, just like teachers are humans too. And so I have 2 posters on the PowerPoint slide, Lincoln and then Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. So students are exposed to popular culture constantly. These include TV shows, movies, and it's important for teachers to remember that sometimes students feel that movies or other things outside of school are more educational to them than their actual teachers. So it's important for teachers to instill the knowledge in students and make it interesting, just like movies, except completely accurate, unlike Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And just wanted to thank you for listening to this. Hope you have a great day and take care.